Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Welcome. Stillman and Company right here on the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, here on the YouTube page at Stillman and Co. Tell your friends to like, tell your friends to subscribe, tell your friends if they want the truth about the Tennessee Titans, if they want the truth about the front office, if they want the truth about the coaching search, if they want the truth about the young quarterback, this is the show for them. Tell your friends. Again, our downloads are great, but we can always do more. Tell your friends, like and subscribe. As the distinguished gentleman, my brother, said at the very beginning here on the program, hit the like and take your shoes off. Now, I do want to start this selfishly on just one quick little shout out to begin the show, if I may. So tonight is the CMA Awards. It's country music's biggest night. Of course, every year they're held at Bridgestone Arena. It shuts the city down downtown for the entire week for CMA week. It's a big deal in the music industry. I'm not in the music industry. Of course, my girlfriend is works at a label, and she's the Canadian CMA Industry Person of the Year, two years in a row, I might add. But that's neither here nor there. And so last night we went to the Broken Bow Records, BBR, BMG. We went to their pre-CMA party. It was awesome. It's awesome every year. But the shout out I want to give is that tonight at the CMA Awards, this is not a surprise. This is not giving it away. This is not Lynette Garbanola, who is the head of international for Broken Bow Records and BBR, and she is a freaking rock star, is going to be honored with the Joe Walker Medor International Award. So she already knows she's won it, so I'm not letting any cat out of the bag. And I actually texted her when it was announced that she was going to win the award. She'll be walking the red carpet tonight. She was telling us last night that she's going to have the SUV, that's going to be sent for her with like the nameplate in the front so that when she gets dropped off at Bridgestone Arena, it's like she's Tim McGraw. And I told her this when she won the award, because obviously she oversees international for BBR and BMG, and Lindsay works Canada, and they're very, very close. And Lynette is like a mentor to Lindsay. And I said, the best coaching gets done when you have players that not only do what you say, but are afraid to disappoint you. Not that they're feared of you coming down on them, which does work, by the way, but when they're afraid to disappoint you. And everybody I know that works for or with Lynette is afraid to disappoint her because she's such an outstanding individual. So congratulations on the 2025 Joe Walker Medor International Award from all of us here at the Stillman and Company program. And I will say this, Lynette is a big, big supporter of this program. And I love that. Okay, let's get to topic du jour. And that is the Cam Ward expectations. And I have to be honest with you. So yesterday when the show ended, I didn't know what the lead topic of today's show was going to be. I had no idea. I actually have an idea of what the lead topic tomorrow is going to be, because I was thinking about doing it today, but I'll save it for tomorrow. But I didn't know what the lead topic was going to be. But I said to myself yesterday, I'd really like to start tomorrow's program on a non-Cam Ward topic, because I feel like we've been talking Cam Ward every day. Then I got in the car this morning to take my kid to school, and I was listening to my former station, and Paul Kaharski was on there with Robbie and Joe, which I think is very entertaining radio. I think that Robbie and Joe host a great show. And when PK's on there, it brings some balance to the force. And I like when he and Paul get it, or he and Joe get into it or whatever. And so I'm listening to PK this morning. And PK said something that just absolutely set me off to where I was texting him. I was texting Robbie. I couldn't believe it. And it was in regards to what Cam Ward may ultimately become. This is what PK said. Take a look.
So, okay, good quarterback. Is that middle of the league?
12 to 15.
Okay. Is that I could see that.
I think
that's about the ceiling.
15, if you get a guy that's 12 to 15, he's a 2 or 3 contract guy. If you have a 2 or 3 contract guy
with a great team, you can win.
The position is set. If the position is set, you have what the whole league wants.
I don't know, man. The masses told me when we had this conversation in the offseason that Baker Mayfield in Tampa wasn't good enough.
That's not good enough.
Wasn't good enough.
No, that is absolutely good enough. I mean, Tampa Bay has a lot of problems, and I don't think they have a good head coach. But if I could have Baker Mayfield for 2 or 3 contracts, this Baker Mayfield, sign me up in a second.
Okay, so PK has now said that the expectations for Cam Ward, or at least his expectations, are to be the 12th to 15th best quarterback in the National Football League. Now, Baker Mayfield is much better than 12. Baker Mayfield is somewhere like 8 right now. 12 is somewhere like Trevor Lawrence. 15, I mean, there's a lot of bad quarterbacks in the league. Justin Fields and Jacoby Brissett and Tyler Shuck. And there's a lot of bad quarterbacks in the league. 15 right now is probably like Caleb Williams. And so you're telling me that if he's 15, that's good enough. 3 contracts of that. So 3 contracts of that is you get 3 or 4 years, then you're paying top of the market, then you pay top of the market again, and then he ends up being a free agent when he's like 33 years old. What? Those are now the expectations? And let me say this. If that is, and that's just one man, that's just Paul Kaharski, that's just one guy's opinion. But if that is now the generally accepted expectation for Cam Ward, then it is a sign that the Titans do not have a clue as to what they're doing. I mean, I heard that this morning, and I thought to myself, you got to be kidding me. The 12th best quarterback? So let's start on the expectations for Cam. And by the way, that whole 12 to 15 thing, that's why I didn't want to draft Cam. Because I felt like if Cam was the best quarterback in this class, but not really a great quarterback overall, then when he had to play the good quarterbacks from other classes, he was going to lose. And when people would say things like, well, he's the best in this class, which, by the way, might not even be true because that might be Jackson Dart. But when people would say things like, well, he's the best quarterback in this class, I'm like, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when he goes out there and plays C.J. Stroud, whether or not he was better than Shedeur Sanders. That doesn't matter. That 12 to 15 is exactly what I would not be interested in when it comes to the number 1 pick. So let's start on the expectations here for Cam. And let's remind ourselves what happened before, again, we watch 10 games of terrible football, and now we're saying if they get the right coach and they build the right roster and they do things the right way, maybe, Lord willing, maybe the Tennessee Titans can have Ryan Tannehill 2.0. The Titans turned down the Giants' offer, which has been reported as the 3rd overall pick in 2025, the 34th overall pick in 2025, the Giants' 1st round pick this year, which is currently pick number 6, and their 2nd round pick this year, which is currently 38. I did the math this morning. What is that on the trade chart? Taking the number 1 pick and trading it for that haul. And the net, not the gross, the net difference is 3,200 draft points. Now, I don't want to get all nerdy on you, but the 1st overall pick is worth 3,000 points. So if you had made that trade with the Giants and the season we're in today were to end today and you were to get the 6th pick and the 38th pick, and this is subtracting for 6 and 38 as a year out because that's when that trade would have been made. You would have essentially been trading the number 1 overall pick for 2 number 1 overall picks. So the Titans turned down that Giant offer thinking that Cam Ward was worth 2 number 1 overall picks in a draft. The general manager, when they picked Cam Ward, said that he had traits that reminded him of Patrick Mahomes. The head coach at the time, who's now been fired, the head coach said that for Cam Ward, there is no offer that could have been made that is worth trading away Cam Ward, which makes sense when you're talking about Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. But not when you're talking about Bryce Young. The team unretired the best quarterback in the franchise's history. They unretired his number. Not just that, the Cam boys, the ones that are saying, be patient. We used to be patient for Mariota, and we're not patient anymore. The Cam boys were making videos saying that Cam Ward was the perfect quarterback prospect with his face right next to Patrick Mahomes, or Air, H-E-I-R, Air McNair. And now this morning on my old station, I hear PK saying the expectations have changed, and the hope should be that Cam can be the 15th best quarterback in the entire NFL. Now I'm being told by the same Cam boys that, again, told me the perfect quarterback prospect and Air McNair, hey, be positive and be patient. I thought he was the perfect quarterback prospect. Nobody else thought that, but they thought that. So now you're telling me that we all need to be patient, and we all need to suck it up, and we all need to wait so that we can sit there and one day hope and pray that Cam Ward can become the franchise's next Ryan Tannehill. I'm sorry, but that's not good enough. Not for the number 1 overall pick. Not when Sam Darnold was sitting out there in free agency. Not when Daniel Jones was sitting out there in free agency. Not when Mac Jones, whom the Titans had zero interest in, was sitting out there in free agency. When you turned down the Giants trade, and when you compared his traits to Patrick Mahomes, and when you unretired Warren Moon's jersey number, you told us, and I say you, but I'm referencing the Titans, they told us that they had just drafted their Patrick Mahomes, their Josh Allen, their Lamar Jackson. Now, let me say this. I never expected Cam Ward to actually be that good, but I didn't pick him. I begged them, do not pick this guy. He's not that good. I didn't stake my career on Cam Ward becoming an elite franchise quarterback. They did. So he better be an elite franchise quarterback. And this idea that Cam Ward can now just become Kyler Murray or become Tua or become whatever average quarterback that you can pick up in any NFL offseason, it's a travesty if we have lowered the bar that much after 10 games. It's a travesty to the value that was offered for that number 1 overall pick. It's a travesty to the expectations that the Titans themselves set for Cam Ward. I didn't unretire a Hall of Famer's number. They did. I didn't compare him to Mahomes. They did. And it's absolutely a travesty to the expectations that the Cam boys set for Cam. So I'm just going to say it right now. I'm just going to put it out there, and this is not going to change. And again, this is coming from somebody who doesn't believe in Cam and who will have to eat a lot of crow if Cam Ward becomes the guy, which I'm willing to do because it means the Titans will be good. Here's what needs to happen, and I feel like this is fair and logical. I think Mr. Spock would be very proud. I think Cam Ward needs to become next year's Drake Maye. Drake Maye was taken high in the draft. Drake Maye's team sucked in 2024, and in 2025, with a better coach and a better supporting cast, Drake Maye is an MVP candidate, and he looks the part of an elite franchise quarterback. That's what Cam Ward needs to become. Now, let me state for the record that I think this is all incredibly unlikely because, number one, Drake Maye was a better prospect coming out of college, and number two, Drake Maye had a better rookie season than Cam Ward has had so far. In fact, I pulled it up through their first 10 starts, how they compared Drake Maye to Cam Ward. It's not particularly close. Basically, in their first 10 starts, Drake Maye had a completion percentage of 68.1. Cam Ward, 58.4. So Drake Maye had a 10-point advantage in terms of completion percentage. Drake Maye threw for more yards, 2,100, 2,137 to be exact, to 1,954 for Cam Ward. Drake Maye, in his first 10 starts, threw for 14 touchdowns. Cam Ward's thrown for 6. Now, Drake Maye did throw 10 interceptions. Cam's thrown 6 interceptions. Drake had a quarterback rating of 89.4. Cam with a quarterback rating of 73.8. And then I just took their overall grades for their rookie seasons, which is not complete for Cam, I understand. But when you look at their rookie season grades, according to PFF, the overall grade, that advantage goes to Drake Maye, 70.1 to 54.9. The PFF passing grade, that advantage goes to Drake Maye, 64.9 grade to 54.0 grade. And QBR, again, and this is embarrassingly bad for Cam, Drake Maye, 55.2, Cam Ward, 28.1. So it's not particularly close between how their rookie seasons are looking, which I do laugh at because everybody always says, well, go look at Drake Maye's rookie year. He wasn't any good, and look at him now. Yeah, Drake Maye, even with Gerard Mayo as his coach, even with no wide receivers, even with no left tackle and a right tackle who's really a guard, he was still head and shoulders better than Cam. Drake Maye was better in every regard than Cam Ward. So I'm not expecting Cam to be next year's Drake Maye. But those should be the expectations given the investment that the Titans made in Cam Ward. And if the plan is built around drafting Cam Ward, no matter what the Giants offered, no matter what quarterbacks were out there in free agency, in this case, Darnold, Jones, and Mac Jones, who are all having good seasons. If the plan was Cam all along, because Cam was going to be Joe Burrow, and he's not an elite franchise quarterback, then how can you trust the same guys implementing the plan? So let me say this. I'm not letting the Titans off the hook for what they promised Cam Ward was and what they promised Cam Ward was going to be. And I'm not going to let the Cam boys off the hook who are now saying, give it time, give it time, give it time. When again, they told me he was the perfect quarterback prospect compared to Mahomes and Air, H-E-I-R, Air McNair. Now, again, I've said this 1,000 times and apparently nobody listens. I do think it is incredibly arrogant to think that you didn't have to do any of the things that the Chiefs did for Mahomes in order to develop him, or that the Titans did for McNair in order to develop him, and that Cam Ward was going to develop the same. Again, just total arrogance. But that's what this is. That was the Titans falling in love with a guy saying, he can be our Joe Burrow. Yeah, except he's not as good as Joe Burrow. He doesn't have as much talent as Joe Burrow. Most importantly, at the quarterback position, he's not accurate like Joe Burrow. It's a little bit of an issue. All right, let's talk Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. You know I use Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical at my home. They take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. And again, they've been in business since 1990. They're family owned and operated with 100% satisfaction of happy you'll be or the service is free. If a customer is not pleased with the work that is performed, Hiller will make it right. Learn more at happyhiller.com, where they have professional, experienced, trustworthy technicians who come into your home and leave it better and cleaner than they found it. Again, I know this because I use Hiller at my home. Care is their core value. They believe that when they care about others, every single person wins, and they'll take care of the customer on every job, every time. Again, I cannot stress to you how much I love using Hiller. They are proud supporters of the Nashville Predators, the Vanderbilt Commodores, and the Tennessee Volunteers. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today. Okay. I want to get to this Nick Suss report, because this one this morning I saw, and I thought, oh boy, Oh boy, not that I'm surprised, but it's just incredibly depressing. And stuff like this starts to come out when people get fired. Because what happens is people that get fired are never the reason, according to them, why they got fired. So what they do is they go to a reporter and they say, hey, here's what happened. And it always comes off as making them look good. But I think Nick Suss is a pretty good reporter, and I think he talked to both sides of it. And I'll just say I have a pretty good feeling for how the Titans feel about this too. So this week, the Titans welcome in Sam Darnold. He of the 4 interceptions last week. Let me point that out. But Sam Darnold still has the second highest rating per Pro Football Focus, even after throwing 4 interceptions last week. So I was absolutely befuddled that the Titans had zero interest in Sam Darnold, given the fact that Sam Darnold's statistics going into this year were almost identical to Alex Smith's statistics before he got to Kansas City, and how much reverence Mike Borgonzi had for Alex Smith. And so I looked at the Titans, a roster with so many holes, that had the number 1 overall pick, that needed to get out of the bottom of the league in a quarterback draft that's not very good. So I said, okay, they're going to do what Kansas City did. They're going to trade the pick. They're going to go get Sam Darnold. They're going to go get Daniel Jones. And they're going to trade the pick of a quarterback who's really not that good, sign Sam Darnold, and they'll probably win 8 or 9 games this season, show growth, and try to win 11 next year. Win 8 or 9 games this year. Then with all the extra picks, players develop, draft, develop, retain, sign some players, go in with Sam Darnold, second year in the system. Okay, now we're going to try to win 10. Made sense to me. In fact, I felt like it was such a good fit, and I was shocked that nobody was interested in Sam Darnold after he won 14 games last year. I would have traded the Chimere DK pick to Minnesota in order to facilitate a deal so that I could get Darnold, threaten to use the tag, and sign him to my own contract, which would have been better than the contract that he did sign in Seattle. So I would have overpaid for Sam Darnold. I don't give a shit. And I do know for the people out there that will say, Sam never wanted to be a Titan, Jared. Let me say this. I know for a fact that Sam Darnold had interest in being a Tennessee Titan. But apparently it was the Titans front office that was not interested in Darnold. According to Nick Suss of the Tennessean, quote, according to several sources with knowledge of the matter, the pairing never even came particularly close to fruition. Multiple Titans sources who spoke to the Tennessean on the condition of anonymity all boiled their recollections of the matter to a similar conclusion. Titans coaches had some interest in pursuing Darnold, but the personnel department wasn't as enthusiastic. As sources told the Tennessean, Titans coaches were interested in evaluating the veteran quarterbacks who could come available. Not just Darnold, who could have returned to Minnesota via the franchise tag or a contract extension, but also former New Orleans and Oakland quarterback Derek Carr, who retired rather than facing the market. So they were like, hey, let's take a look at Darnold. Let's take a look at Derek Carr. I mean, I think we talked about all those guys too at those points in time. Nick Suss continues. The front office never loved the idea. Even if signing Darnold meant trading the number 1 pick in exchange for a massive haul of draft picks, there wasn't belief that the roster would be strong enough to seriously contend within the first 2 cheaper years of Darnold's contract. The strategy of signing a win-now quarterback to a roster that wouldn't be ready to compete felt tantamount to signing up for roughly 7 wins a year and wadding back into the quarterback market in 2 or 3 years. Again, that comes from Nick Suss. So basically, again, the report being that the Titans weren't interested in Sam Darnold because they're like, well, our team sucks so bad that Sam Darnold wouldn't be any good here, which is what most people say to me when Sam Darnold, outside of Sunday, when Sam Darnold was going out and putting up MVP performances on Sunday Night Football was, well, Sam Darnold wouldn't have been that good here anyways, Jared. So here's what I'm going to tell you I know in reference to the Sam Darnold decision and the Titans coaches saying they wanted Darnold and the Titans front office not wanting. Because I don't know what the coaches wanted or that's Suss's reporting, not mine. But here's what I know. Mike Borgonzi thinks that Cam Ward is the next Patrick Mahomes. He does. Mike Borgonzi thinks that Cam Ward is so mentally tough that no matter how bad it gets, they cannot screw him up. That, like, it is impossible to screw up somebody that is as mentally tough as Cam. Mike Borgonzi, like many of you, thinks that Sam Darnold would be no good on this terrible football team. Well, what Sam's doing in Seattle, he wouldn't be doing here. I guarantee you, Mike Borgonzi thinks that. But here's my problem with that issue. And something that I think Borgonzi knows I think. Would you be 1-9 if Sam Darnold was the quarterback? Would you be 32nd in the NFL in total offense? Would you be 32nd in points? Would you be so unwatchable that Fox has taken the Tennessee Titans off the air in Memphis, Chattanooga, and Knoxville? Because they'd rather show you Bears and Vikings. Well, 7 wins. I mean, what's the point of 7 wins? The belief that Sam Darnold wouldn't have won enough games to justify the money in 2 years makes me think that this front office doesn't really know how the NFL works, which, again, goes back to the problems with Brian Callahan coaching the team and Rand Carthon as the general manager, because I don't think they knew how the NFL works. In the NFL, you only get 2 years if you're lucky. Some places will fire you after 1. They won 3 games last year. So the front office is saying, what does 7 wins mean? It's better than 3. And what are they going to win now in 2025? Did they think that they were going to win 1 game? Did they go to the podium? Even when they laughed at the idea of the Super Bowl, did they go to the podium and say, hey, fans, we're actually going to be worse this year than we were last year. So strap it in. If you thought last year was bad, if you thought last year was unwatchable, this year's going to be worse. And when I hear somebody say, so what if we win 7 games? That sounds like somebody who doesn't understand the NFL. Because if you're good enough to win 7 games in the NFL, you're good enough to win 8 or 9. The difference between a 10-7 team and a 7-10 team is a couple of fourth quarter drives. It's a couple of decisions that the schedule makers have by, let's give them that tough game after a bye. It's, you didn't have to play that quarterback because he was hurt. In fact, you won 1 game this year, and it's because the other team made about 18 separate mistakes in a row, including dropping a touchdown before crossing the goal line. If you go from 3 wins to 9 wins, everybody thinks you've got a capable plan. Everybody, once again, is excited for Titan football. Everybody, all of a sudden, is going to be excited for next season. Their Sundays are no longer ruined. You're going to be on the air in Memphis and Knoxville and Chattanooga. We're not talking draft in November. That's if you win 7, 8, or 9 games. But the Titans didn't even entertain this. And I'm going to tell you why the Titans didn't entertain it. Because when the Titans fire somebody, as soon as that person leaves, they try to take the exact opposite approach of what they just did. They tried to win in 2024. They spent money in free agency. They told people, we're going to be good. We checked every box, and it didn't work. Now, I think it didn't work because they didn't have a Sam Darnold. They had a Will Levis. And now they've decided, we don't have any interest in trying to win now, which sounds nice when you're talking that way in March and April. How does it feel when you win 1 game in November? So now that Brian Callahan has been fired, he's decided he's going to tell people, hey, the coaching staff was interested in Sam Darnold. The coaching staff was interested in Derek Carr. And what I know kind of backs that up. What I know is that I didn't know if Callahan wanted Darnold or not because I haven't heard that. But I know Mike Borgonzi did not want Sam Darnold. And this goes back to the plan. And this is why it's hard for me to buy into the plan when I don't think it's rooted in NFL reality. The truth is, in the NFL, you can try to build a Super Bowl contender, but for the most part, you're just trying to keep a job. And if Amy Adams-Strunk, granted, she fires everybody all the time, but if this team wins one game this year, and it may come down to Shedeur Sanders versus Cam Ward when they play Cleveland as to what's going to decide if they win 1, 2, or 3 games, because they'll play Tyler Shuck in New Orleans as well. But if they win one game this year, which they are fully capable of, Amy would have every right, even though she is a crazy reactive owner, she would have every right to can the entire operation right then and there. Just like Robert Kraft realized Gerard Mayo was a dope and got rid of him so he could go get Mike Vrabel. So if you're Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker, it sounds good when you're sitting there in the office saying, well, if we sign Sam Darnold, we may only win 7 games this year. And say, well, I don't think that winning 7 games is worth it. Let's draft the young quarterback. Let's just go ahead and do all of that. When it's like, dude, in the NFL, if you don't win 7 games, you're fired. Like, that's how it works. Now, again, I don't know what Brinker's got on Amy, where Brinker can be a part of every single fuck up this organization has and get absolutely zero blame for it. That isn't it. Nick Suss, get on that investigation, please. I don't know what that is. But if Chad Brinker sat there and said, hey, we're going to win 1 game this year, but we should all be good, then they do not know how the NFL works. Now, the one thing I will say when it comes to the idea of, well, we don't think that our roster is going to be very good and we're not going to win 1 game and, we're going to win 7 games and that's not good enough. And I was thinking about this because in the NFL, you're all judged by wins and losses, except not here. Because Mike Mularkey won and he got fired, and John Robinson won and he got fired. So I guess maybe they were right to not want to go get Sam Darnold to be their Alex Smith and go through a couple of years where you can get to the playoffs, but you're not going to beat Roethlisberger. You're not going to beat Brady. You're not going to beat those guys. So then you take a shot and you go get a Hall of Famer. And maybe they say, well, we need to take our shot and try to go get a Hall of Famer right now. But I'm not sure Cam Ward's that guy. But maybe they did it because they looked at Amy and they said, hey, even if we don't win the Super Bowl, we'll get fired. Just like John Robinson and Mike Mularkey got fired. But it's just, crazy. Whatever that is. So those are the 2 Cam things that I wanted to get to today. We'll get to some of your reaction today here on the program. There is one other thing I've got to get on the Cam boys for. This is where I struggle with the idea that this roster's so bad, not even Tom Brady could win with this team. So the Cam boys have decided that they are going to go on a crusade on social media, which does work, by the way, because I think this ownership group or this owner is on it. But they have decided that they are going to go on this crusade to get Xavier Restrepo off of the practice squad and onto the football field. So the Cam boys tell me every single Sunday that I have to watch, I have to suck it up. And I have to watch Cam Ward play every single Sunday. And I have to watch Cam Ward stink every single Sunday because the roster is so bad that Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones, or Mac Jones couldn't have done any better. And that Tom Brady wouldn't do any better. And that Peyton Manning, who, by the way, was the quarterback of the 12th ranked offense in the NFL when he was a rookie. Cam is the quarterback of the 32nd ranked offense. That Peyton Manning stunk as a rookie too. And yet, the Cam boys' answer for how the Titans might win a game is to put in Xavier Restrepo, the undrafted free agent practice squad receiver who runs a 4.8 Seriously. Could you people be more delusional? You tell me this roster is so bad that the greatest quarterback who ever lived, Tom Brady, could not win with this roster. That is your defensive Cam Ward. Then your solution for fixing this terrible roster is to take a guy off the practice squad that at no moment has any NFL team other than you shown any interest in, to stick him in there over guys who have actually played in the NFL before. Again, every NFL team had a shot to draft Xavier Restrepo, and they all passed. They passed in all 7 rounds. Then you signed him as an undrafted free agent, and he didn't make the team out of camp. So you cut him. All other 31 teams could have claimed him. They didn't. Xavier Restrepo has been on your practice squad every week of the season. And at no point has any of the other 31 teams decided, you know what? Let's sign Xavier Restrepo to our active roster off of Tennessee's practice squad. The Titans, with different coaches, have decided every week, we don't want Xavier Restrepo out there. Let's sign Mason Kinsey to the active roster. Let's elevate James Prochet from the practice squad. And yet you people think that Xavier Restrepo might be the answer to help this football team because he played with Cam Ward in college. Do you realize how Looney Tunes that sounds? Don't worry about the fact that he can't run. Don't worry about the fact that he's not big. Don't worry about the fact that he can't play special teams. Don't worry about the fact that nobody except for the Titans fan base that wants this Disney Plus storyline to play out has any faith that this guy belongs in the NFL. This guy is there to be Cam Ward's friend. That's why he's there. And you think he's actually going to win you a football game? Like an actual NFL football game where thousands and thousands of people go to watch, where millions more watch on TV, where CBS and Fox pay billions of dollars to air the game. You think that Scarbini is going to be the difference between a win or a loss? They don't. That's why they play Mason Kinsey over this guy. That's why they're going to play James Prochet over this guy. That's why they've played every single one of these guys over Xavier Restrepo. Because he sucks. And yet the Cam boys, who, again, live in the he's Mahomes, Jared, and Air, H-E-I-R, Air McNair. They live in these storyline fantasy worlds where they think that because it would be a good Hallmark NFL movie, that it's actually going to be Tennessee Titans reality. That's ridiculous. It's insane. He can't run. And Titans fans on Twitter will say, well, how do you know that? Because they timed him. And when he ran, it wasn't fast. Well, that's just 140 time, and he was coming off of an injury. They have probably practiced since July. They have probably practiced 80 times. They have seen him practice 80 times. Not one time has he shown them anything in a practice that has changed their mind about whether or not he can play in the NFL. So this roster is so bad that Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. couldn't win any games with it, but you think an undrafted receiver who's too short and too slow and can't play over Mason Kinsey and can't play over James Prochet for 2 different head coaches is going to make a difference? Again, do you realize how ridiculous that sounds? And yet I already know what's going to happen. What's going to happen is that these Titan fans, he's going to get out there. He's going to make a catch. People say, stay. I know the final score was Seattle 56, Tennessee 3, but Xavier Restrepo and Cam, they've got that special chemistry. This is not Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, folks. That was a duo that won a national title. They were both elite players. That's why one went first in the draft and the other went fifth. Xavier Restrepo is a bum. And he only has a job on the practice squad because, well, he's Cam's buddy. And yet you people think you might win a football game by putting him in there. Oh, goodness gracious. LD says, Jared, that's not it. It's the fact that we don't want to see Mason Kinsey play. We'd rather see Xavier Restrepo play. See, that's not true. And I'm going to tell you why that's not true. Because the Cam boys were calling and screaming for Restrepo before Mason Kinsey was even in the picture. I remember when I was at the radio station, I was in Costa Rica in May, and I was gummied out. But I like sports talk. Like, I keep up with sports talk while I'm out of town. I want to listen to what people are saying. And I heard the Restrepo talk. And I had to send a tweet out. I'm like, you people need to stop worrying about this bullshit, and you need to worry about the receivers that they drafted, like Chimray DK and Alec Iomanor. Those are the guys you need to be cheering for, because you need somebody to step up and to be Cam Ward's guy, and it ain't going to be this guy who's too slow and too short. And everybody got mad, and I remember somebody at the radio station was like, I can't see how Restrepo doesn't make the team. I'm like, are you fucking serious? You don't see how Restrepo makes the team? And that's probably why this person's a complete and total moron. But he was like, I can't see how Restrepo doesn't make this team. And I'm like, well, let's do the math. Teams usually carry 5-6 receivers max. We know the Titans are going to carry Calvin Ridley. We know they're going to carry Tyler Lockett, who they just signed. And we know they're going to carry the 2 players that they drafted. That's 4. So now for Restrepo to make the team, Restrepo has to beat out a punt returner in James Prochet, or a much better player who had flashed in training camp, flashed in preseason games, flashed in regular season games last year, in Bryce Oliver. And Bryce Oliver ran a 4.55. And I said, he's not better than Bryce Oliver. Bryce Oliver's good. I mean, one of the biggest things I'm disappointed about this year, knowing this team was going to suck, knowing I didn't believe in the quarterback, is I'm disappointed in the fact that Bryce Oliver's been hurt, and I want to see Bryce Oliver get out there, because I just think Bryce Oliver's pretty good. I mean, again, I say pretty good. Like, I don't think he's Justin Jefferson, but I think Bryce Oliver's a solid NFL player, and I'd like to see him play receiver in the NFL. But when it comes to this Restrepo thing, I'm like, there's no way he's going to make the team. He's too short. He's too slow. He doesn't play special teams. And so that had nothing to do with Mason Kinsey. We were not talking about Mason Kinsey when people were like, oh, they signed Restrepo. Watch out, world. And it's the same Cam boys that are so into Restrepo. It's the same 12 people on Twitter that are so into Restrepo. They're the same people that thought that Cam Ward was Mahomes. They were the same people that put out those hype videos and that had no interest in trading the pick no matter what was offered. I mean, you could have offered Josh Allen for Cam Ward in April, and the Cam boys would have said, you'd be fucking stupid to take that trade. And that is so depressing. All right, let's get to some of your reaction. I do have a Vandy take that I want to get to today here on the program, but let's get to some of your reaction. Wyatt says, the reality is Cam is so bad, people are getting mad at practice squad call-ups over it. I mean, I've seen the debate on the Cam Ward missing Mason Kinsey throw about 18 times on Twitter, where they're just going back and forth. I'll put it to you like this. And I agree with the sentiment that Cam has been so bad that really what's happened here is now it's like the arguments are about this minor shit that doesn't matter, like Restrepo, because you don't really want to talk about the real issue, which is Cam himself. But when it comes to the missed throw Ward to Kinsey on Sunday, I have a really hard time believing that Mason Kinsey wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. Because if Mason Kinsey wasn't doing what he was supposed to do, Mason Kinsey wouldn't be a guy that the Titans do everything in their power to keep around here all the time. I mean, Mason Kinsey is on his third general manager, fourth if you count Chad Brinker. Mason Kinsey is on his, third coach? I don't even remember. Was he here when Mike Mularkey was the coach? I mean, it's hard for me to believe that Mason Kinsey wasn't doing exactly what the coaches wanted him to do. Because if Mason Kinsey didn't do what the coaches exactly wanted him to do, then the coaches wouldn't always love Mason Kinsey. I'm not saying Cam's the one who fucked it up. I just have a hard time believing it was Kinsey who fucked it up. But I do think it's funny that, to the texter's point, it's like, we are so worked up over freaking how bad Cam is that now we're having arguments about practice squad call-ups on a one-win football team, which is unbelievable. Gamer says, I am not interested in Blake Bortles or another Marcus Mariota. Oh, yeah, it's starting to look like Cam's ceiling. Even the Cam boys should admit at this point we should have taken the picks. They're not going to do that. The Cam boys have resorted to saying Peyton Manning wasn't any good as a rookie, or saying we all need to be positive, and if he ends up not being good, then so be it, but we all need to be positive. To which I'm like, oh, great. Kelsey says, in regards to PK's comment, that right now the best we should hope for is that Cam Ward becomes the 12th to 15th best quarterback in the NFL, which, again, I think is absurd. She says, of course, that's not good enough. And I have no faith in this front office to draft well in 2026 either. I have no faith in the front office. But as far as the actual drafting of players, I think we need to separate people that don't know how to run a football team can know how to draft players. I think Joe Shane's kind of an example of this with the Giants. If you watch that Hard Knock series that they did a behind the scenes with the Giants 2 years ago in the offseason, they focused in on the draft, and you can see that Joe Shane is very comfortable when it comes to the draft of evaluating players and the structure with which he does it and everything else. So they're not going to hit on every pick, but like the Giants, he's got a focus for how he wants to handle the draft. But the guy can't run an organization. I mean, he's on the phone with Saquon Barkley, begging him to take less money so that, well, one day we could put you in the Ring of Honor. Saquon's like, I think I'll just go to the Hall of Fame. Sorry, I'll take more money. One person says, yes, Jared, but we want a Super Bowl. With few exceptions, you have to have the great quarterback to win one. We tried it with Ryan Tannehill, and we got as far as we could. So here's what I think is going to be fascinating, because I do understand that sentiment. Now, I would like to get there with Ryan Tannehill and then get rid of Ryan Tannehill and get somebody better than Ryan Tannehill, kind of the way Kansas City did it with Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes. But here's the question I have for you. Right now, in the AFC playoffs, the best teams, the number one seed, the Denver Broncos. Do you think Bo Nix is that kind of quarterback? Do you ever think Bo Nix is going to be that kind of quarterback? Indianapolis, they're up there. They're having a great season. Daniel Jones at quarterback. Pittsburgh has Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, and he ain't Aaron Rodgers anymore, folks. So, yes, I still think Mahomes or Josh Allen or even Lamar Jackson is likely to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. Drake Maye, I think, would fall into that category of elite potential franchise guy instead of the Daniel Jones category, and maybe New England gets to the Super Bowl. I don't think they will, but maybe. But the problem with that is, look at the NFC. How many elite quarterbacks are there in the NFC? Before the year, people said Jaden Daniels was the best quarterback in the NFC. Now, I would argue that the best quarterback in the NFC, it's a three-way tie between Stafford, Dak Prescott, and Sam Darnold. And none of those three, to me, are Josh Allen or Joe Burrow. And on top of that, when it comes to those guys, Dak was a fourth-round pick. Sam Darnold was just signing free agency. Matthew Stafford was a trade and is old. Somebody's going to have to win the Super Bowl. Last year was Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts wasn't that good, but he had a great team around him. So you can win the Super Bowl that way, even if Ryan Tannehill didn't win the Super Bowl that way. But hey, again, Mike Borgonzi wanted to do the same thing that you guys wanted to do, which is let's be the Chiefs, but instead of doing what the Chiefs did by going the Alex Smith route for a couple of years, building up the team, drafting guys like Eric Fisher at left tackle and Travis Kelce at tight end and Tyreek Hill at wide receiver. Instead of doing that, let's just try to skip to the end of the book and let's just put Patrick Mahomes in there without the year on the bench, without the year in which we went over his mechanics, without all the things Andy Reid did to help Patrick Mahomes become Patrick Mahomes. Let's just skip all of that and have our Mahomes. And most people would say, you're crazy if that's what you think you can do. Bryant says, we were told Cam would throw it all over the yard. Where has that been? You know, I don't know what we were told by the Titans because, again, when it comes to the Titans, you know, nobody came out and just said, he's Mahomes, because coaches and general managers are smart enough not to do that, because when you do that, people like me never forget it. So when you say that, it's like, you know, I still remember, again, Brian Callahan telling Albert Breer that he told Rand after watching Will Levis's tape, hey, do your due diligence on the draft, but I don't think any of these guys are better than Will. And that included Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake Maye. You don't think that Will Levis is better than Drake Maye? Odd. So, of course, I don't forget stuff like that. And that's why people don't say those things. But when you unretire Warren Moon's number, which, again, I thought was disrespectful to even ask Warren Moon. When you unretire Warren Moon's number, you're telling your fans, this guy is going to be our savior. And right now, you are a worse football team than you were this time last year. And last year was unwatchable. You are 32nd in the NFL in total offense. You are 32nd in points. You are not even on the air for your games in Memphis, Knoxville, or Chattanooga. It's embarrassing. And yet, everybody said this guy was going to be Mahomes. I love TDG. Says, just wait. Sam, fool's gold Darnold will show up playoff time like I've always said. Yeah, and when do the Titans play in the playoffs? When is that going to happen? Oh, yeah, they won't. Sam Darnold threw 4 interceptions last week, almost won the game, which, again, almost who cares? Sam Darnold almost won the game last week. They are a 13.5-point favorite this week in the NFL. That's like a bad ACC game. That's like the best team in the ACC playing the worst team in the ACC. Unbelievable. One person says, Restrepo sucks, we suck, Cam sucks. Throw the 4-9-40 time out there so we can get over it while we suck. You know what? Fine. Go ahead, put him out there, and just let's see if he's any good, which he is not. Unbelievable. All right. I want to talk about Vanderbilt in the college football playoff ranking. I always tell people, don't get into the playoffs, because when it comes to the college football playoff, these things seem to always work themselves out. I'll never forget one year, Alabama lost to A&M, and it looked like they weren't going to make the playoff. And the last week of the year, there were like 3 upsets. And people said, hey, you need to thank Oklahoma State's quarterback, Stanford's kicker, and Terrell Pryor's tattoo artist for getting Alabama into the BCS national title game. So for the most part, I think these things usually work themselves out. Now, there have been a couple controversies. The Florida State-Alabama one, which, again, I still think was bullshit. And I thought that Ohio State in the playoff that first year in 2014 was wrong. But as of right now, the playoff rankings have come out. Vanderbilt's number 14. And basically every Vanderbilt fan has succumbed to the idea that they're not going to make the playoff even if they go 10-2. When going into the year in a 12-team playoff, everybody just assumed that a 2-loss SEC team would make the college football playoff. And what's terrible about the latest CFP rankings is that while they have Vanderbilt 14th, which isn't bad when there's only 12 teams, they are behind pretty much every viable 2-loss team for a potential playoff spot. Per the All-State Playoff Predictor at ESPN, Vanderbilt has an 18% chance of making the college football playoff. Let's say Vanderbilt does what they need to do, which is not a given, and that's win at home this week against Kentucky and then go on the road and beat Tennessee. And they will not be favored against Tennessee, and it does look like Kentucky has kind of gotten their act together. That gives Vanderbilt, according to the All-State Playoff Predictor at ESPN, that gives Vandy a 53% chance of making the playoff. But what bums a lot of people out is the fact that pretty much all the viable 2-loss teams, Utah, Miami, Notre Dame, etc., are ahead of Vanderbilt, even though Vanderbilt has 2 of the best losses you could ask for. Ranked teams on the road in relatively close games. And then yesterday, Hunter Yurachek, who's now the CFP chair, said that Oregon still gets credit for their win over Penn State because Penn State was good then, even though Penn State sucks now. So Oregon gets credit for their win over Penn State, but Vanderbilt gets no credit for their wins over South Carolina, Missouri, and LSU. And the reality is this. At the end of the day, if Vanderbilt goes 10-2 and they don't make it into the college football playoff, the reason that they will have not made it into the college football playoff is because they're Vanderbilt. That's why. There won't be a completely objective, non-biased reason other than they're Vanderbilt. And when people see the Vanderbilt logo, they think they're not any good. That's the only reason why Alabama had 1 loss, got blown out at home against Texas, and got into the college football playoff over Florida State because Florida State's quarterback injury gave the committee an out, and the committee said, who's better, Nick Saban's Alabama or Florida State without a quarterback? And they just decided it was Nick Saban's Alabama. Why do you think Ohio State got in over TCU and Baylor? Because they're Ohio State. Notre Dame is in a position right now where unless they absolutely puke on themselves, they are going to make it into the college football playoff. Miami has 2 losses too. Miami beat Notre Dame, but Notre Dame's still ahead of Miami. Why? Because that's Notre Dame. I heard Colin Cowherd today say that the timing of the win and the timing of the loss matters, and that it's like the NFL. And he said, well, the Patriots lost to the Raiders in week 1, but who do you think's better now? And I'm like, if this were the NFL and Miami and Notre Dame had the same record, it absolutely would matter that Miami beat Notre Dame, because that's exactly how they decide ties when it comes to the NFL playoffs. I don't know what you do short of what the Big Ten is begging for, which are guaranteed conference spots. I don't know what you do to make it fair. But you can't tell me Oregon is head and shoulders great because they beat a bad Penn State team who has already fired their coach, whose coach has already landed another job. You can't tell me that they get credit for that, but Vanderbilt doesn't get credit for beating South Carolina when everybody thought South Carolina was a top 10 team playing at home with a guy they thought was going to go number 1 at quarterback. And I'm just going to tell you, I don't know. And I think that politics play a big role in all of this. And it would not surprise me if Vanderbilt goes 10-2 to see Greg Sankey flex his muscle a little bit, because I do think that politics plays a role here. But if Vanderbilt does not get into the playoff and they go 10-2, Greg Sankey's going to do something that all of us don't like. I don't know what it is, but he's going to do something. There is a nuclear option that the SEC has been threatening, that if you leave an SEC team that loses 2 games on the road at Alabama and Texas, and you leave them out of the playoff after you left Alabama out last year, there is a nuclear button on his desk, and he's going to hit it. I don't know what it is, but he's going to hit it. But I am a little bummed out for Vandy. I would talk about the Predators for the fact that apparently it looks like Andrew Burnett's going to be the coach, but I just don't have the juice to do it. Because it's like, well, if you're not going to change, then why should I give a shit about you changing? That's going to do it for us, everybody. Great show today. Thank you so much. Like and subscribe. Tell all your friends. By the way, the CMA Awards are tonight. TDG says in the comments, rock the tux, Jared. So I am not going to the CMA Awards tonight. Last night I went to the BBR party. It was great. I'm not going to the CMA Awards. Somebody's on dad duty tonight. That's me. Lindsay will be walking the red carpet tonight, and I will be at home. No tux for me. Everybody enjoy. That's it for us. We're out of here. Like and subscribe. We'll see everybody live tomorrow. Of course, your favorite spot right here, 2 o'clock, right here on the Stillman & Company program on the 440 Sports Network.